Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of Triple Overtime. I am Dylan Holloway, along with Austin Snyder, Amar Burton. We have a jam-packed show for you tonight. We're going to talk some NBA Finals. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball and a little bit of UFC. And my man, Austin Snyder, has a segment on Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's been in the news a little bit lately, right? That you do not want to miss. But first off, let's get the pleasantries out of the way. Amar, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good. Started the new job within the last week, so I'm getting used to this new schedule and try not to, go to bed too late. I've been going to bed at like 2 and 3 in the morning and getting up at like 8 with the
That's
kids.
because you're slamming at the casinos all night, right? Have you lost your shirt yet? Or
Nah. We're working that swing shift, so I'm getting off at like 11:30 at night. So, takes some getting used to, but I'm good. I'm kind of a night owl anyway, so no big deal.
For those who may have missed last episode, Amar moved from Seattle to Las Vegas, so
yep.
He's right on the strip there, living out of the MGM. Is that right, Amar?
Yeah, like half an hour away, but close enough. I was like, it's weird. It's like there's always something going on here. Like even with COVID and all that kind of stuff. Like there was some gigantic like Garth Brooks concert the other night. Like he sold out the Raiders stadium. There's always some concert.
Garth Brooks, baby, of course. He's selling everything out.
Yeah, like convention, like it's just like something always happening here, which is
you're probably never bored in Las Vegas, right? Austin, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. We had some technical errors here coming into this, so got a new little setup here though for the time being. But yeah, doing awesome, man. The wife went through some pretty major health scare. I think I touched on that a little bit last episode. She's healing up amazingly. Our baby boy just turned 6 months as of yesterday from this recording, that is. Overall, there is some really, to me at least, incredible basketball going on that I'm enjoying it just thoroughly. My biggest problem is I don't know who I want to win. It's like I feel like I'm rooting every time anybody makes a basket because I'm a huge Devin Booker fan, huge Giannis Antetokounmpo fan. I for the last few years, as a Sonics fan without a team, I follow players and I'll admit it, I bandwagon jump, you know what I mean? But I think I have a right to. But anyways, I really like both of these teams. I'm really glad that, at the end of this finals, either team, I'm going to be really happy for, whether it be the Suns and Chris Paul getting his first championship ring, one well-deserved, or Giannis and Chris Middleton proving a lot of people wrong, saying that they'd never be able to win a ring together. I think that's a pretty interesting storyline that isn't being talked about a lot, where there was a lot of doubt that, Chris Middleton was this, third option, scoring option at best on a championship caliber team, never as the number 2 guy, maybe even as low as a 4th scoring option, spot up shooter type. But they've been playing amazing basketball. So
and we'll touch more on the NBA Finals there, but you're right, Austin. I'm the same way. I don't particularly have like a team. I just want to see a good series. So I'm really glad that Milwaukee, as of this recording, notched a victory. So it's now 2-1 Phoenix. But as for myself, I'm wrapping up an internship here pretty soon in about 3 weeks now. So I'm at the point where I'm kind of doing a little demo reel stuff. I sent it to both of you guys to kind of take a look at, trying to send my applications and resumes out there all over. I don't have a particular area that I'm tied to for finding a job. So I've sent them everywhere from Detroit, Michigan to like Omaha, Nebraska. So, I mean, I don't think you get any polar opposite than that, right?
Come on, ESPN Seattle. Reach out.
Not for lack of trying. I'll try. But the right fit has got to be there too. I'm not going to apply for like floor director of Sports Center, when I have no. They're like, how much?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
So I'm not a broadcast guy. I've mostly been doing print my whole career. I know when I go back and like read old articles I wrote, sometimes like it just makes you cringe. You're just like, ugh, even if it was like kind of a good article, like it's just reading your own right. Is it like that with you when you're putting together your reel and you're watching your like old broadcasts? Is it just like?
Oh, absolutely. Not just that with like news, but that with wrestling too. And I think a lot of people like that kind of defines like if you want to get better or not, because there's some people who are kind of delusional of like they think everything they did is just like amazing. You know what I mean? And there's other people who like see stuff they did a couple years ago, like, man, I've gotten so much better than that, or I need to fix this. You know what I mean? That just kind of separates you. Like, and I think it should be like that with everything. You should take notes and like critiques, like take pride in what you do, but don't get an overinflated ego of like, well, I did a story, so I'm the man now. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. In any field that you do in your life, you know what I mean? Wrestling or print journalism or broadcast, or maybe if you sell cars for a living, who knows? Just a hypothetical.
True. I used to do infomercials for a dealership I worked for, and I the guy who shot them every week, like clockwork, would give me a copy of it. And my mom would record it on her, back when DVR was kind of a thing and not everything was streaming or YouTube, right? But she would record it, and I'd watch them every single week just because and to see from the very first infomercial I did all the way up until we had stopped doing them, or not as often that I was, feeling that I needed to watch them. It just kind of became, a workout type of thing. But anyways, yeah, I'd watch them every week just to like, what are things that I'm saying repetitively? How could I explain something differently? Just to be at the top of my game. And we're talking about a 30-minute used car infomercial on a channel 3 here in the local area that 25 people watched a week. You know what I mean? So it's like, but
right.
You're right. You have to perfect that craft.
And if you don't look at your own stuff, you're never going to get any better. Like I know lots of people in like different professions who like, once it's done, they never look at it again. They're like, oh, I don't watch my own stuff. I think it sucks. It's like, then why are you even doing this? Like, right. if you're not trying to get better.
And for me too, it's like, if you're not watching it, if you receive a critique on it, how are you supposed to, like, you have to know that it's there, that it's valid, right? Not that like my infomercials had haters or whatever, I wasn't that popular with them. But yeah, I mean, if I'm not watching them to understand where I'm going wrong, then
infomercials.
Right. But if somebody says something to me or whatever, it just maybe it doesn't stick as much because it's not something that I felt was wrong or whatever the case. So, yeah, I think it's always a great idea to go back through all your stuff and see how you can get better, see how you can do better. I should have juked left instead of right, and I'll make sure to do that next time,
Now, if you can see that segue coming from a mile away, the Milwaukee Bucks probably watched film to see what they could do better in the NBA Finals. Okay.
So that's professional right there, ladies and gentlemen.
That was great. No, so yeah, game 3 of the NBA Finals went down to the night that we are recording this. Milwaukee won 120-100. So now the series is 2-1. Suns still in the lead. But they are still, going to be in Milwaukee for game 4. So right now, 3 games in, where do you guys see the series going? Like, it kind of seemed like the Suns were in total control and people were writing Milwaukee off, talking about it might be a sweep. But now it feels like, we got a series now. So start with you, Austin. Like, who do you think is going to win from here?
It's really tough, honestly. A part of me wants the Suns to win, but man, when Milwaukee is just banging on all cylinders, they are just so hard to beat, especially throughout this entire playoffs. And I got to tell you, I am ecstatic, not just that they won, but they won in such convincing fashion. Because you're right, so many people are so quick to this is a 4-0, this is a sweep, maybe a gentleman's sweep tops. I think if they win this game by a last second buzzer beater, or a late 2 minutes left in the game and a couple possessions that maybe were dicey, and so they win by 4 or 5 or whatever, I don't think that would have cut it. That wouldn't have cut the chatter in regards to maybe Phoenix is by far and above the much better team. Instead, it lets people know that, hey, don't forget, Milwaukee's still one of the best teams in the NBA. They got here for a reason. And it wasn't necessarily a cakewalk for them. They had granted injuries, whatever you want to call it, but you're talking about a Kevin Durant-led one of the greatest basketball players ever and in the world currently, led team with a James Harden and for some time a Kyrie Irving, and they even went through them, to get to this point. So this is a team that I see the series going 7 games. And at this point, I'll toss a coin or a quarter in game 7. Heads, I want the Bucks to win. Tails, I want the Suns to win, because I can't pick a team. It's like asking me who my favorite child is,
I don't know if it's that extreme, is it?
I'm really, this is probably the first playoff and finals that I am having fun watching, thoroughly enjoy, and absolutely make a point to catch every single second of it that I possibly can in a long time. I mean, I love the Golden State Warriors era. I thought those were really fun playoff series and find everything else, but man, something about this one, maybe it's just because nobody's ever been there before on either team. It's just super cool. Nice to see this next generation of what will soon to be the face of the NBA kind of get their chance on that stage.
Yeah, I think Crowder's the only one with any finals experience on either team, right? So that's pretty cool to see, the possibility of a lot of different players getting their first ring. And I'm right there with Austin. I'm glad that Milwaukee not only won tonight to make it a series, but won convincingly, because if they had won by 1 point, like you said, on some fluke thing, then you'd be like, it's kind of just a matter of time until, the Suns take back over or whatever. But not only does this help Milwaukee, obviously, by getting a win in the series, but winning so big, they get confidence now, because if you watch the first 2 games in Phoenix, it's not like Milwaukee, didn't have the ability to win. They just weren't making shots from some of their players, and they were playing lackluster defense on a lot of things. And that's kind of what Milwaukee kind of hangs their hat on, is their defense, right? They're a strong, hard-nosed team that plays really good defense. They got Giannis, who scores a lot, and Middleton's a good player, and Holiday's a good player, but defense is kind of their bread and butter this postseason run, at least in my eyes. So seeing them kind of clamp down. One thing that surprised me tonight was Devin Booker, just how much of a non-factor he was in tonight's game. I know it's just one game, but if you're doing your NBA Finals MVP watch, and if the Suns go on to win and everything kind of stays the way it is, Devin Booker basically lost the Finals MVP tonight because he scored 10 points on 3 of 14 shooting. I know that seems like hyperbole, but that's kind of how they rate it. You know what I mean? I remember Steph Curry, they thought that he might get the Finals MVP over Durant on Durant's second title with the Warriors, but then Curry had a bad game, and that lost him the Finals MVP, which seems ridiculous,
right?
But that's kind of how they rank it. So right now, if you got the Suns winning, I've got Chris Paul Finals MVP. If you got the Bucks winning, obviously it's Giannis winning Finals MVP. And I don't think Booker's going to shoot this terribly the rest of the series, obviously. Probably not even the next game. So the Bucks can't rely on him, because he didn't even play the fourth quarter at all, I don't think. I think Coach Monty Williams just sat him out just to rest him, kind of thing.
Well, and he's been prone to that each series. If you've noticed, he's been prone to at least one, if not 2, just rough nights. What was it? Chris Paul's first game back against the Clippers from his injury, that they had a combined, he hit 1 3-pointer out of a combined 18 attempts. So I can't remember the exact number, but I think the other, they didn't even have 20 points. It's just, So, I mean, he's susceptible to it. But right now, I mean, Chris Paul is in the driver's seat. He is the clear leader of this Suns team as of right now. And it's one of those things also where I think where the Suns may have the edge is that though he's never been in this moment, Chris Paul has spent his entire career preparing for it, right? He and I think that's why it's so agonizing to him for so long, because he's I'm ready to be on this stage. I'm ready. I am so there. All of my other homies, all the other friends, everybody's done it,
I got a stat / trivia question here for you fellows. Something that I saw on the Twitter machine before we jumped on. So Giannis tonight, he had 40 points and 10 rebounds for his second Finals game in a row. Only 2 other players have ever done that in Finals history, back to get back 40-point, 10 rebound games. Can you guess who the 2 players are? You both give your guesses, and I'll tell you who's right and who's wrong. Amar, guess first.
40-10.
40-10 back-to-back finals games.
Shaq and Wilt Chamberlain.
Austin, what you got?
I'm going to say LeBron and Shaq.
Austin's right. It's LeBron and Shaq. I can't believe Amar didn't pick his man LeBron there.
I know.
I'm forwarding this straight to LeBron after the show. I guess Wilt Chamberlain never did it. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the books in front of me.
It's one of those like since the merger type things, because I'm like, how did Wilt Chamberlain not?
This is according to Clutch Points, and like I said, I didn't dig deep in the books to see if this was true. But Shaq in 2000, LeBron in 2016, Giannis in 2021. That's the list of back-to-back 40-point, 10-rebound games in the NBA Finals ever. So maybe Wilt dropped 52 and then had 39 the next game. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily bad, but not officially 40 points in 10. So, I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. That's high company right there. But
Well, keep in mind
thoughts
too,
on the finals.
Oh, go ahead.
Wasn't so going on the finals MVP thing. I mean, I think Chris Paul already had the narrative working in his favor going into the series. And as we've talked about, regular season MVP, finals MVP, a lot of it's just about narrative, right? Like what's the best story? And Chris Paul going in had the story, you know, of his whole career, trying to get here and all that. So Devin Booker would have had to probably play good to great every game and average like 30 just to knock Chris Paul off. If Chris Paul does normal Chris Paul things and they win, he's going to get finals MVP.
Or he would have just had to hold LeBron James.
Even if he had like 17 points a game and like 10 assists, that'd be enough.
He had like 17 and 10, you know, which is like not
versus Devin Booker having like 29 a game. You think that's
what I'm saying. If Booker doesn't average like 30 or so, you know, and if they just play,
it has to be so obvious that like not giving it to Booker would be a clear-cut travesty, right?
Yeah,
but that's not always the rule.
It was like
funny, like
finals MVP to lose, essentially.
But that didn't happen to Steph Curry with Iguodala. Like they gave Iguodala the finals MVP because of his defense on LeBron, who averaged like 30
points a game.
I know he was the most effective against LeBron, but they acted like he shut him down or something.
Which he did not.
But that was Curry was like below average for him. I think he averaged like 22 or something in that.
Yeah, he had a rough couple games, and then they got on the big old Della Vadova's a lockdown.
I was gonna say, and then there was like one game where it was like, oh, Della Vadova outplayed him, so like,
he's the man now, and then Curry roasted him game 3. Absolutely roasted him after that. Like,
didn't he have to go to the hospital for dehydration after that game?
I think that's a true story.
I'm pretty sure, dude.
I was listening.
Weird series as far as like MVP goes. Like LeBron got 40% of the vote, and his team didn't even win. You know.
Yeah. Real quick aside here. That reminds me of something I was listening to. Is Dan Patrick? Can't remember who he was interviewing. I think it might have been the Suns play-by-play guy. He was talking about when they're playing the Clippers, how like when there's a player who's like really good at one thing, they're really careful of the narrative on that person. Like Patrick Beverley, like Devin Booker, as Austin was mentioning, Devin Booker had a rough game where he broke his nose or whatever, right? Where he had the stitches in his nose and like he didn't score that much. And the story was like Patrick Beverley shuts him down because he's a defensive specialist, you know. And then the next game, Booker goes off for however many points, and there's no, well, Patrick Beverley got, you know, wiped the floor with, but it's just like, oh, Devin Booker had a good game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
he's back. He's back.
And it didn't happen with. Yeah, it didn't happen with Dellavedova. Nobody was like, well, I guess Dellavedova's not a good defender. They were just like, well, I guess Curry scored enough. You know what I mean? Like, but before that, Dellavedova was like defensive player of the decade suddenly because of these 2 games where Curry didn't shoot well. You know, so it's just funny how that stuff works.
You know, another thing with this series, like, it's weird because it's back and forth, but it's not competitive. Like all the games have been blowouts essentially.
It feels like that's how most of the playoffs have been, right?
Well, there was this. Okay, so this was back during Boston's like the Big 3 era, like, you know, Garnett, Pierce, Ray Allen era. They had this series with, I think it was Atlanta, and it went 7 games, but every game was like a 20-point blowout. It was like a odd series. It was like none of the.
Who is playing for Atlanta in that series? I forget.
This was like Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, Atlanta.
ISO Joe. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was like none of the games were close, but no team could gain control, and it went to 7.
How did that go 7?
I could see it kind of going like that. It's like, like
I love Joe Johnson as much as the next guy, but how did that go 7?
I remember that because Joe Johnson was getting a lot of love during that entire series. Like people, getting a little ridiculous in regards to where his place in history is. But it seems like that's what a lot of these series, this playoff run has been for everybody, where it's like a lot of these games are going 5, 6, 7 games. And like the first 3 or 4 just are blowouts one way or the other. And then when you start getting into those real tight games, when you're getting to the end of that race, all of a sudden then we start to get some really historically great games. But yeah, I mean, it's just odd. It's almost like, I don't know, maybe they're hoping for a game 7 just for the fans, right? Is that what's going on? Or
like the players?
Probably not. Yeah.
No.
No. I mean, yeah, I don't, maybe just, 2 teams that are like a lot better in front of their home crowd. And so they're just
right.
Yeah.
Well,
that always helps your role players, right? The role players always shoot a lot better. Except for Crowder tonight, shot 6 of 7 from 3. Like I can't remember a game. I can't remember a game during this postseason where he shot that well because
but like Drew Holiday, those first 2 games in Phoenix, I mean, he couldn't hit a shot, and then tonight, he hits 5 threes. I mean, he's like the most. And I wrote about this on one of my sites, West Coast Hoops. Giannis is their MVP, obviously, but Holiday in this series, you could say he's like their most vital player, or their most like important player, because they don't have a chance to win unless he plays well.
Right, and he's got to play well on both ends.
Right,
he's got to play
he
Chris
has to
Paul
be a star on both ends of the floor in order for them.
because he's got to guard Chris Paul predominantly, right? And then he's got to actually score some. Like, what did he have tonight? I got the numbers right here in front of me. He had 21, 5, and 9 assists. 21 and 9 assists. It's a pretty darn good game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
5 threes. Like,
yeah. And then, like you said, like the first 2 games, he couldn't those shots weren't just like in and out or like anything. Like he was having trouble like hitting rim at times.
Yeah.
In those shots, like mid range, couldn't hit the rim, dude. Like it was like stop shooting. Like it's like one of those games where like Austin can attest to. Like if you go to a pickup game, you have a guy on your team who's just like not hitting anything, and he just keeps jacking up shots.
And he shoots like this.
Pretty soon you walk over and grab the ball and go, stop shooting. You know what I mean? Like I know Holiday's an NBA player, and obviously he's going to get his shot back, but his offense did not look good in those first 2 games. So I'm sure for the Milwaukee Bucks, this was a welcome sight. And Middleton, he had 18, 7, and 6. So he had a much better game, but he still hasn't had that like breakthrough game. I think it was Amar posted like this screen grab of a meme, right? On like the cycle, the Chris Middleton cycle of like he's underrated, then he has a good game, then he's like really good, then he's bad again, or something like that, and it just kind of rotates.
Oh yeah.
And that is what it seems like to happen, right? Because it's kind of like you forget about him, and then he like went off against Atlanta in like the third quarter alone. Like I think he had like 20 points in the third quarter in one game or close to it, right? Like some amazing, like he like outscored the Hawks by himself at one point in the third quarter. And it's like, whoa, where did this come from? And then the next game he has like, a really bad shooting night. So
yeah, like he pops up like every few games, like just when you're kind of forgetting about him, he scores like 35. And then you're like, oh yeah, Chris Middleton, like, it's like, is he a star? Like, how great is he? Is he underrated? And then, he goes under the radar.
You think he's a star? Let's go around the room right here. Is Chris Middleton a star? I know he's technically been an all-star, but is he a star in the NBA?
Yeah.
Yes.
You think so?
This is
absolutely
my superstar and star criteria involves some off-court. And
let's get the rules out here.
Marketing, profile, just me personally, I kind of include that kind of stuff, right? And Middleton doesn't have like any of that. Like nobody talks about him. He's not he's not any kind of like marquee attraction or anything like that. But just his game on the court, numbers wise, I mean, I don't know. It's like I want to say yeah, but because he's got the accolades. He's got a couple. I think like 1 or 2 All-Star nods. 2. Okay. He's had these huge games in the postseason right when they needed them. In that Brooklyn series, in the Atlanta series, like. So I'll say yes. He's become a star this postseason. I'll say that.
And I feel like I was like in court, like grilling Amar on that. Like that was the longest answer to give me yes, Chris Middleton.
I was thinking it out as I was answering, like because like last start.
He just debated himself.
He's going back and looking like each individual year of numbers. Well, he had like 18 points per game this year, but
when he started, he's like, I've got this criteria of like, off the court stuff. And so, no, he doesn't need any of that. And then ramble. Yeah, he's a star. He's definitely a star. I agree with you, Amar. I think this playoff run has solidified him at least as a star with some potential to go a little bit further. Not much, honestly. But yeah, I think with like the Bucks aren't in the finals without Chris Middleton stepping up the way that he did, right? So, I mean, that is memorable, historical enough, combined with, his couple all-star nods, and just his overall ability and talent. And granted, he may not, have the recognition media-wise, brand-wise, anything like that, but when you say Milwaukee Bucks, you think one of 2 people typically, either Giannis Antetokounmpo or Chris Middleton. And some may consider or think Chris Middleton just because Giannis's name is too difficult to say. So, I mean, that's so to me, if that's what the thought process is, like if I say the Lakers, you say LeBron and AD, right? Those are stars, superstars, really. But when I say Bucks, you say Middleton.
Really, LeBron's a star? Hot take.
Yeah. You don't say, as much as you may think, you don't say like Bobby Portis and Giannis, right? You think Middleton and Giannis. You don't think Drew and Giannis or Holiday Giannis. You think Middleton, Giannis. That's it. Or Giannis.
I get what you're saying, and I agree that Middleton, without Middleton's contributions, obviously they're not in this position. But like, does him being the second best player on a good team automatically make him a star? Like how much room is there in the NBA for how many stars? Can like you have multiple stars per team in the league? You know what I mean? Are there like stars on the Orlando Magic because if a guy's scoring a lot on a bad team, is he a star? Like how does it work?
Right.
You know what I mean? A standout.
What's that?
I think he's a standout, which is a little bit below star. So
I think he's a second best player on a really good team.
Yeah,
I think he's a second best player on a really good team. I don't know if he's necessarily a star.
Right? He's not just like some dude. He's not like a role player.
I think a standout's the best way to say, because that's really what he is. And I think he's a guy that if he stood out a little bit more consistently, right, then yeah, he definitely can and has the potential to be a bona fide solidified star.
Okay,
right?
Next question. Is DeAndre Ayton a star? See, look at that. You can't say Ayton's a star, but like Middleton's a star. It's like they feel like they're kind of right at that same level in terms of
I think Ayton,
he hasn't made an all-star team yet. He hasn't
he's just too fresh into the league, right?
He has an all-rookie selection, and that's it.
But that's the thing. If you're that fresh into the league, like you have to make at least, if you're 3 years in the league, you have to make at least one all-star game, right? And you have to have some kind of accolades to back that up, because otherwise you're not even qualified to be considered either one unless you've made this like incredible, you're a generational type of talent like LeBron James was or whatever, where he was like immediate star when he entered the league.
Yeah.
So a stat tonight they aired over the game. He has the most doubles in his first postseason since Bill Walton, and nobody else has like come close to that. So I mean, I definitely think he's on the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's very impressive.
If Chris Middleton can be a star, then Ayton can obviously be a star.
Oh yeah, and Ayton's not far behind. I think you have to give him at least another year or two.
You need an all-star selection to like be officially be a star.
But if we're saying,
I think so, yeah.
But if we're
saying it's kind of like the
bar, then we're saying that Phoenix has 3 stars, and then there goes that Chris Paul's not on a super team thing. He's on a team with 3 stars.
Right.
Yeah, but now we get into the whole super team argument.
So that's the thing. Nobody would say the Suns are a super team, and that's
my whole problem with the Chris Paul thing in the first place. Because, dude, we're talking about a team that went undefeated in the bubble playing games last. Like, they were putting it together. Booker, Ayton, and the Suns team as a whole were putting it together. Like, anybody that paid attention to that enough and actually watch the Suns, which I get it because not a lot of people wanted to because they've been very bad for a very long time. I happen to be a Booker fan, so I have followed them a bit. Like, you kind of saw the writing on the wall. Granted, Chris Paul should get all of the praise in the world for being the guy to get him over the hump, but it was just like it was a matter of time before that right piece went into that wheel or that mechanism to turn them into a championship caliber team, you know?
And like Chris Paul is also, he's playing really great, but he's not as good as younger Chris Paul, right? We can agree that he's a little past his prime at least. What is he, like 36, 37? So like I think you can't really be a super team if you got, just because the guy's Hall of Fame bound doesn't make it a super team no matter where he is in his career.
He's still a star, though, I think. We all say
and he also still got quite a bit of I mean, didn't he finish like second or third in MVP voting, or was that I was thinking of Steph Curry. But I know he got some chatter for it. You know what I mean? Like,
did he make the All-Star game this year? Did he make the All-Star team?
It wasn't, you know what, like it wasn't like people were talking about Chris Paul a lot until the playoffs, really. You know.
Well, no, because he got a lot of chatter, obviously, with the Rockets, and then he got a lot of chatter with the Thunder because he drug them to the playoff.
Yeah.
Oh, this season,
yeah. This season, it was like, as good as the Suns were, they didn't really get a whole lot of talk until they got to the playoffs, and then they knocked off the Lakers, and then all this attention came to Chris Paul.
It's because that's the Arizona problem, bro. It's the same thing with the Cardinals.
So he wasn't.
They go 14-2. No one talks about it until the playoffs.
Yeah, I just looked at him. He was an all-star. Yeah, he was 2021. He was an all-star. So
the thing with Chris Paul, when he was the Suns, it's similar in a way to when LeBron went back to Cleveland. He had these two young stars with him, Kyrie and Kevin Love, who hadn't done anything as far as winning and going to the playoffs yet until they got with LeBron. And he kind of brought that, leadership element that got them, and they were, a championship, caliber team because he was right in the middle of his prime and everything. It was kind of the same thing with Chris Paul in Phoenix, like Ayton and Booker, they got two young stars. They had the talent, you could see it, but they hadn't won anything yet. And Chris Paul brings that leadership, righting the ship and getting them over the hump to where they need to be. And now they're on the cusp of the championship. So, similar thing. I mean, everyone was like, Chris Paul did it the right way and he didn't want to join a super team. And I wouldn't call Phoenix a super team because, like I said, if we're doing that, then we're saying Ayton's a star or superstar. And he's
did it the right way. Like,
as if he didn't.
It wasn't like Chris.
I'm not playing with these really good guys.
It wasn't like Paul joined like a crappy team and just took them from nothing to the finals.
That's what I'm
saying.
He
actually taught Devin Booker how to play basketball, bro.
Right. Like, that's what kills me about that whole argument is like, dude, the Suns had talent, absolute talent. And then
Monty Williams was in running for Coach of the Year, right? So they not only have talent, but they have a really good coach too. So it's not like this team wasn't built to go for a run or go on a run.
That's what I'm saying, dude. And they started to show it last year. Yeah, they started to show it last year in the bubble playing game. Yeah. They were undefeated. They just didn't catch the lucky breaks that they wanted.
Every successful team is good on all three levels, like front office, coaching, playing, right? James Jones for the Suns, I think he won Executive of the Year. Monty Williams is up for Coach of the Year. And, we talked about the players. So it's never just like one guy shows up and everything changes. Like it's a whole organizational thing being a championship team in the NBA. And like a lot of people just don't get that. So, but I think we can actually transition from that into a superstar player for an organization who doesn't win. And that's in Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani with the LA Angels, and he's having this monster season. He's kind of the star of the show this MLB All-Star All-Star week. with home run derby and the All-Star game and everything. He's a talk of the league right now. Like, and meanwhile, his team, they're 500. I'm not sure if they're even in the wild card race. And it's weird because we talked about this with Mike Trout too. I mean, same thing, same franchise. Do you think that, like, is the hype with Ohtani right now, is it like too much too soon? Is he the kind of player that, does MLB need him? Do they need this hype? Like, just to, get the attention on the sport that we've talked about so many times? Like, just kind of what's your take, start with Dylan, on like Ohtani craze right now and just like how that's going?
Well, being Mariners fans, all of us being Mariners fans, we don't know a thing or two about a team in baseball that doesn't win anything. So I think we can get that out of the way, right? Even though they are 5 games above 500 as of this writing, and the Mariners are sitting in 3rd place in the wild card, whereas the Angels, who have Mike Trout, who many people say is the face of baseball and the best player in baseball, and Ohtani, who is like this new, like, just it's like this energy behind him, right? Like, everybody wants to see him watch. He's just putting up, like, they're comparing him to Babe Ruth. They're saying he's better than Babe Ruth in some instances already, and they're in 7th in the wild card chase. Like, why is this Angels team, how can they have so much talent and just never, like, the last time they made the playoffs was 2014, I believe. I looked at this earlier today. I might be incorrect on that off the top of my head, but I believe it was 2014 last time they made the playoffs. Like, how can they have this much talent and this guy is doing things we've never seen before, and they're still, like, they're right now 45-44, 1 game above 500. So, they're, and, like, as far as, like, baseball needing this, baseball absolutely needs this. They need more players like this. I know it's like, it's funny to say, like, oh, we need more people who are having these, like, record shattering seasons, you know what I mean? But not just like his play, because there's a lot of good players in baseball, and Austin will attest to that. There's many good players in baseball, but, like, not many players have this, like, electricity around them, right? That are bringing excitement. There, people are tuning in to watch Angels games, and the Angels aren't very good. They're, you want to see this guy, like, just the way he hits, the way the ball sounds coming off the bat sounds different. Like, he's got this, like, aura about him where people want to see him. And the fact that he's doing things like making the All-Star game as a pitcher and as a hitter, which hasn't happened for a very, very long time. You know what I mean? Some would argue that he's a much better hitter than he is a pitcher. Like, he has a chance to be a good pitcher, and he has a chance to be, like, an all-time hitter. So I know Dan Patrick was saying, like, he should just stick to hitting, but that's not, my decision to make or anything like that. But I wish there were more players like this in baseball, because this can get people who are casual fans, who are not automatic diehards like Austin Snyder, to watch the game, to tune in, even just to see clips on Twitter, you know what I mean? Just to go, oh, I want to check this guy out. I've heard about this guy, or to see the Sports Center top 10. Oh, I want to see this guy. I heard he was really good. You know what I mean? That's at least a start. It's 3rd in popularity in terms of the big 4 American sports, but it feels like football, NBA, and then baseball, you know what I mean? Like, further down. And I don't know how they fix that besides getting more players like this who can galvanize the sport.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's absolutely the truth. I mean, that's what's crazy about it, is that it's the double-bladed sword for Major League Baseball, where, like, the beauty of the game is that it truly does take a team effort to win, right? Like, unless you're Shohei Ohtani, who obviously doesn't typically do it on both nights unless it calls for it, depending on who they're playing. But you're not pitching, you can't pitch and hit, right? So, like, you're in a situation where everybody has to pitch in. And so, yeah, that's what's crazy. You go from the Angels, who had a dynamic duo, though he wasn't quite in his prime like he was with the Cardinals, of Albert Pujols and Mike Trout. As Pujols was this big, electrifying, almost, could be argued as face of baseball at that time. Again, we saw a little bit of a dip because he was older, but Mike Trout came on incredibly strong and became this next face of baseball. And then we're seeing the same thing with Shohei Ohtani. But again, the biggest problem with Mike Trout is that he hasn't been to the playoffs enough. He hasn't gotten on that national stage enough. He hasn't, like, you can never, for me, and this is a terrible comparison because the guy actually has championships. But for me, the thing with Mike Trout is almost similar to, like, with Kobe Bryant, right? Where when Kobe was playing, it was constantly, he's top 3, top 5, one of the greatest, this, that, he's going to be the GOAT. He's vying for the, it's Jordan, LeBron, or Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, or Jordan, Kobe, whatever. Those were the 3 that it was, and then the guy retires, and the guy, like, for the most part, majority wise, is barely cracking most people's top 10 all-time list. You know what I mean? Other than real true fans. And that's where it feels like with Trout too. So, though, again, his is from the lack of the playoffs, and Ohtani's going to do the same thing if they really don't figure it out. That's from the technical baseball side of things. As a fan side of things, this is the greatest thing to ever happen to baseball in the last 20 years. I swear to God, dude, this is amazing. We have a guy that could literally win the MVP, the Silver Slugger, the Golden Glove for his position, and a Cy Young Award all in the same season. And that's the thing. Like, I understand where Dan Patrick's coming from, because yes, Ohtani does have the opportunity to be one of the greatest hitters of all time, break all sorts of records, all of it. And I'm all for that. But he's more than just a good pitcher. He's a really good pitcher. I'll have to double check the numbers. Last I looked at his numbers, the guy's pitching in the low 2s, like a 2.34 ERA, 4-1. That might be changed. I haven't caught it over the last couple of days. Baseball changes quick with that. But like that we're talking about a trajectory of a season where we saw the likes of like Felix Hernandez win one and almost win a second Cy Young Award. I mean, that's insane. And for anybody to want to tune in just to see that is incredible for baseball. And it's a huge, huge jolt that they need, where hopefully they can capitalize on this and find some more unique talent to showcase and get out there in the spotlight and bring a bit more chatter to the sport, because it is really sad that people do care, as you mentioned, Dylan, more about the NFL offseason than anything to do with baseball, around when it starts or anything. It's crazy to me.
And that's not just my opinion. Like, SportsCenter will run NFL offseason things where they talk about baseball.
Absolutely. I mean, they were talking about that on Fox Sports Radio yesterday morning about how it's so sad that, like, they're like, oh yeah, Ohtani's great. We'll talk about him for about 20 minutes and then let's never do it again until he does something else amazing.
Even, I mean, within the sports media industry and then just among fans, we refer to that part of the year when the only major sport going is baseball. We call that the slow part of the year, which
right
weird because it's like, it's supposed to be
imagine being a baseball player,
still a major sport, right? Yes.
Like, but we call that the slow part of the year. If there was a point in the year when the only thing happening is NFL, we wouldn't call that a slow time of the sports year because it's the NFL, right? But the thing, so it should, be worth that Mike Trout has been hurt. I think he's been out since May. However, at the time Mike Trout went out of the lineup, they were under 500. I think they were like 18-22. So when they
weren't much better than they are now.
Yeah, when they had Trout and Ohtani in the lineup, both healthy, they still weren't winning. And it just goes to show like just how different an animal baseball is, because there's no other sport I can think of where if you have two players on the same team that are arguably like face of the sport MVP type players, and you're not even going to make the playoffs. Like, this is like
is that a baseball thing or is that just an Angels thing? Let's pick on the Angels a little bit here as Mariner fans.
Like, this is like the Brooklyn Nets have Kevin Durant and James Harden healthy the whole year
and don't make the playoffs out of the East,
right?
Right.
Or the Patriots, Tom Brady and Randy Moss, and they don't make the playoffs. Like, that wouldn't.
Yeah. Think Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in their prime at the same time, and they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, these aren't just good players. These are like generational talents. Like, if you believe in the hype of Mike Trout being the best player in baseball, the face of the league, you believe in Ohtani, who's already better than Babe Ruth, according to a lot of sports writers. Like, I'm not just making this up. There are articles you can go read from Sports Illustrated and other, other publications where they're saying he's better than Babe Ruth already.
Like well-respected publications.
This is like Babe Ruth, he was pretty good, right?
And then the next day there was a column like he's the best player of all time. Like,
and of all time.
But
imagine having the best player of all time in the face of the league and you don't make the playoffs.
But we've seen this in baseball with like a team that has a dominant player. Like that season when Barry Bonds broke the home run record, the Giants didn't make the playoffs that year. So Alex Rodriguez won MVPs on teams that didn't make the playoffs. Mike Trout won MVPs on teams that didn't make the playoffs.
Why is
Well, you
baseball
got to
like
think,
that?
dude. The last time the Mariners were consistently making the playoffs, they had the likes of Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez. You know what I like? We're talking like a plethora, though young at the time, a plethora of Hall of Fame players, right? Or soon to be Hall of Fame players. Even back in, back when they had guys like Mike Cameron, Brett Boone was in his heyday, Dan Wilson, all of those guys. Like, we're talking about very, very good. So again, it's because baseball is so special in the way that there has to be team chemistry, obviously, but like you do need a lot of talent, right? Cohesive talent around, like balanced around the entire team to not just to make just the playoffs, right? Let alone win a World Series. I mean, that shows you like how much of a different animal it is. Whereas, the NBA, literally LeBron James at one point, maybe not now in his older age as we've watched him lose a step, but could literally go to any team and they're like, well, here's your next finals contender. It looks like we'll see the Detroit Pistons in the finals now that LeBron James joined them, I mean, it's crazy, dude. Well,
Pistons are pretty bad.
If we're taking older LeBron James,
LeBron
or younger LeBron James.
LeBron and his Robin Mason Plumlee are making a finals run. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I get what you're saying. Let's not get ridiculous now. The Pistons are so bad. That's a story for a different day. It's weird to me how in baseball you can be the MVP and not make the playoffs. Whereas like Steph Curry was in MVP talks and they're like, well, if he's not at least the 5th seed, he's not the MVP. And he's doing stuff we've never seen before in the league. Whereas in baseball, you can just be a really good player on this crappy team and here's your MVP.
No, this
well, that's because there's the understanding that
a baseball
Steph Curry
so much.
Exactly. And Steph Curry or whomever, when it comes to basketball, like you can, to a degree, drag your team to a better seed or to the playoffs.
Okay, I get that argument with basketball. Let me push back with football though. On football, you're not getting an MVP without like either having the best season in the league on the best team or like some record-breaking thing like when Adrian Peterson came back from his ACL tear and carried the Vikings to the playoffs.
At this point, it's like you have to be a quarterback to win MVP.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quarterback award.
Yeah,
you can't be the best quarterback.
And that's just because the quarterback team. But because that's because the quarterback has that expectation because they're the ones who can make that kind of dynamic change. I mean, look, Matt Stafford goes to the Rams, and all of a sudden, we might as well just hand him the Lombardi Trophy. You know what I mean?
What you're saying,
for what
the most important position. But what I'm getting at is, even if you're like, let's say your quarterback, Joe Smith or whatever, right? And you score 50 points a game, and you put up insane numbers. If your team is 1-15, he's not getting the MVP.
Right.
It's not happening in football, and it's not happening in basketball. But for baseball, like.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, yeah,
but generally in football, if you're having that kind of season and scoring 50 touchdowns in a season, you said 50 points a game, but 50 touchdowns.
We've never seen that happen technically, but there's been people
team's not going to go 1-15.
There's been people who have had amazing seasons on bad teams, and they weren't even in the discussion for MVP. Yeah. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Because they're like, well, their team sucks. Moving on to the next team.
Right.
You know
I think it's just because it's become so commonplace that we've seen guys make that kind of a difference from maybe a bad team to making them a playoff team that like, that's just the expectation, right? Like that's kind of one of those unwritten rules of like, hey, if you're going to be in the discussion, if you're going to win the award, like you have to check this box, right? It has to be one of your accomplishments if you play Madden or whatever.
I kind of appreciate that baseball does have that, where it seems like the field's more wide open for MVP because it's like it's not relegated to it has to be a guy that plays for one of these playoff teams. During
because we see guys have huge, ridiculous, record-breaking seasons almost every season on really bad teams because Mike Trout can't pitch, right? Like, and on the field he can only play right field. He can't play right, center, and left field, right? Like, there's only so much he can do other than just be absolutely incredible, amazing, 100% at what he does and the opportunities that he does get.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, like this came up during Russell Westbrook's that first season where he averaged a triple double. But his Oklahoma City team, they were like a 5th seed or a 6th seed or something like that. And it came up a lot of, okay, he's having this historic season, but is his team good enough? They're comfortably in the playoffs, but they're not a top seed. And I think it was like the only other player, you know, in the last 30 something years to beat NBA MVP on a team that wasn't a top 3 seed was Jordan in '88, right? So basketball's just kind of set this precedent where not only do you have to be a playoff team, you know, to get MVP, you have to be one of the top seeds in your conference to get MVP. Football, it just seems like, you know, you just have to make the playoffs. In baseball, it's, you know, there's kind of seems to be no rules on that. There's no set criteria like you got to be as the star of a playoff team. You just have to have a really good season. And just, I guess the argument is, well, if you took Trout off the Angels, they'd be like absolutely horrible. You know, not just
They'd really not
Maybe
make
win-
the playoffs then,
Maybe
brother.
win
Yeah.
3
Like,
games in 162
Who
seasons.
cares?
but
If you don't make the playoffs, you don't make the playoffs, dude. I'm not buying the argument of, well, imagine how bad they'd not make the playoffs if you took Trout away. Like,
you're
they'd
like
only win
relegated
20
to like
games instead
double
of
A.
If
40
you drop
games.
to 10th seed in the wild card race instead of 7th, I
Who
mean,
cares? You're still not making the playoffs. Yeah, Shannon Sharp says there's a restaurant, right? Shannon Sharp runs a restaurant, and there's only 2 things on the menu. There's wins and there's losses. What will you have? The rest doesn't matter, right? You don't get
Right.
style points for how many games you won on a playoff missing team. And I don't care, especially for how many years in a row it's been. 2014, really? Come on, man.
that is pretty bad.
Yeah.
As a Mariners fan, it's not as bad as 2001, but 2014 is pretty bad.
We've also haven't had a Mike Trout or a Shohei Ohtani in that era, in that time period either. So
now, I mean, as good as Shohei Ohtani is for Major League Baseball, just on his talent, just on his production, just on how good he is, I think the one thing that's missing with him is he's not polarizing. He's not controversial.
right.
Which is what
Not yet, brother.
that's what makes a player in a sport like truly, you know, that's what's going to blow up. That's probably what's going to be that guy who turns around MLB is somebody who is polarizing. So transition from that into one of the most polarizing athletes on the planet, Conor McGregor, who we just saw in action, yesterday to when we're recording this, had his 3rd fight with Dustin Poirier, I think I pronounced that correctly, which ended in Conor McGregor breaking his ankle, shin, leg, something, breaking something. It was ugly.
Ankle.
He lost the fight on that. But again, with McGregor, it's never just about the fight. It's about everything leading up to the fight, you know, the talking crap, the controversy. This time with Poirier, you know, McGregor was talking about the guy's wife and just being Conor McGregor, stepping over the line, going too far. What do you guys think? Like, is the McGregor, is his gimmick, is his shtick, is it good for UFC because it just brings it the attention? The other question is it, because there's this thought, you know, you should never make fun of someone who gets hurt. You know, injuries aren't a joke. You know, never talk about someone who got injured. But when someone acts like Conor McGregor, is it okay to talk about that guy getting hurt? So start with Austin. What do you think?
I think Conor McGregor was the unfortunate, terrible, and absolute worst beginning of the downfall to what has now become the Paul brothers being considered professional boxers. And what I mean by that is these BS gimmicks and running your mouth on a guy's wife and saying that you're going to put him in a body bag and roll off the deal in a stretcher, even though he did. Like, that's just, it's, don't get me wrong, I get it. And to a certain degree, I almost respect it, right? Because it's almost like with baseball or golf, right? You're in this position where somebody has to step up and like advertise for this damn league, right? You know what I mean? It's like somebody has to be that polarizing figure that draws people to want to watch it. That's what Tiger Woods was for golfing. And since he left his prime and has never been the same again, nobody cares about golf, right?
I mean, Tiger Woods was a star, but he wasn't polarizing like McGregor, right? Like polarizing?
Absolutely, dude.
Calling out
Dude,
people's wives? Calling out people's wives?
Well, no, I'm talking
not because
that's not necessarily what polarizing means. I mean, we're talking about in the position of the fact that like when Tiger Woods was golfing, everybody watched, you know, and the last time golf like caught that kind of attention was when he won his last Masters, you know, because he was coming out of everything that he came out of to win that. And so like you need that. You absolutely have to have that. Just another part of me wishes it wasn't McGregor in the way that he's doing it, because that's what's opened up this ridiculous say whatever you want, do whatever you want, just get as many people that want to put their eyeballs on your product as possible. And I don't know, I just, you know, maybe I got an old soul or whatever, you know, becoming the get off my grass guy, but I just don't like this new age of advertising when it comes to these extreme combat sports, we'll say.
And I'll say the polarization part, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything that the athlete is doing that's wrong. Like Tom Brady is polarizing just in the sense that it seems like half the people love him, half the people hate him, right?
Right.
Not that Tom Brady's done anything wrong. It's just there's just something about him that
Tom Brady's never done anything wrong, brother.
Well, yeah.
And let me clarify something too by saying I understand that boxing and fighting sports as a whole of our, you know, you had Muhammad Ali back in the day that used to mouth off and you know on Joe Frazier, all that stuff, right? But like there was still a level of the showmanship, right? And there were just certain boundaries or borders that you didn't cross or lines that you didn't push with it.
I think it's a lot different now too, Austin, because of social media and just how like it's not like you see Muhammad Ali on like a press conference and he calls out a guy and then it's like it's over, right? It's like you don't have Muhammad Ali on Twitter like, yeah, and I'm gonna get with your wife later on. You know what I mean? Like, he's in my DMs, bro, and like all this other ridiculous stuff. And I get what you're saying with like the Paul brothers and the like. It all feels, as someone who knows a lot about professional wrestling, a lot of it feels very like kind of phony to me sometimes. You know what
scripted.
I mean?
It does. Like
it does because like and then like
McGregor
you'll talk about
totally scripted.
You talk about a dude's wife and then they go up and they do the nose to nose thing where they stand there and they pose, and it's like if you and I were gonna fight and we actually had that much heat, I'm not going to stand there and like, they didn't shake hands, but I'm not going to stand there and pose with you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I guess the argument pushing back is like, well, he doesn't want to get in trouble and miss out on the fight or whatever. But seriously, like, come on, man. Like,
and not only that, but like I said, even the whole thing with McGregor and Khabib was, you know, and I don't know, Dylan, Amar, did you follow a lot of that saga with Khabib and McGregor? Right. And I don't know if you did so much, Dylan, but there was this one point where, you know, McGregor has to turn himself in because he threw this like barricade thing that smashed into Khabib's window and like glass got in his friend's eye. Yeah. And the whole time I'm like, did Vince McMahon like put this together or what is going on here, dude? I was just waiting for someone to come out into the middle of an octagon and be like, listen here, brother. You know,
it feels like wrestling. Crazy. It feels like wrestling sometimes, but wrestling done in a very poor way. You
exactly, know what I mean? And that's
because
what makes
you don't
it
have
even
the
worse.
You don't have the excitement of like a wrestling storyline because it's not full blown wrestling. So you can't make it like that,
right?
You know, you can't have Stone Cold coming out in a monster truck running over Conor McGregor's car. You can't do that. So they try to hype up their own stuff. It's like they're trying to book their own storylines, you know. And just, like I can point to just Conor McGregor's Instagram, which I got pulled up right here. And it shows him on the stretcher here. And he says, you need people like me. Now, do you know what that line is from? You need people like me? Scarface, right? Say hello to the bad guy. So he's telling you right there, I'm the bad guy and you need a bad guy to root against right there. He's basically telling you like, hey, I'm the bad guy. This is my role. You know what I mean?
I'm the heel.
Yeah. So like the thing about wrestling is like, at least in the modern age, obviously, most people know it is a show. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like if you have like MMA and your whole argument is like, well, we're MMA and we're not scripted like that fake wrestling or whatever, you know what I mean? Something that I figure an MMA guy would say. Uh, we're real, brother. You know what I mean? We go in there and actually hit each other and stuff. But then you do stuff like this. It doesn't really make any sense. It's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what almost
it
makes it seem disingenuous, right? Like for them to go to these lengths to create these storylines. It does. It makes it seem disingenuous.
It makes me think that their product probably kind of. It makes me think their product probably sucks if they have to do this to make me want to watch.
But you know who opened the door? You know who opened the door to this in the UFC was Brock Lesnar. I mean, he did, because he was the first guy that if you watched, and anybody watching the show right now, you'll remember. But back in his big feud with Frank Mir, I mean, he was the guy that played up the heel and everything, because he knew that's what sold, right? And he was the type of guy that he took his wrestling background and what he could bring from there, but he sold it in a much better fashion than what Conor McGregor does. I mean,
well, he also did it in a genuine way. Like that's just his personality. He wasn't going out and like doing this like weird, like throw a stool through a bus window or whatever.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It didn't come off phony.
He did it in the right facet. Yeah, exactly.
It didn't come off phony. And I don't know that Brock Lesnar. I don't know that Brock Lesnar necessarily was like, I'm going to go out there and try to like hype up the fight with the promo brother, or if he was just like, hey, this is how I feel, take it or leave it, screw you, because that's how Brock Lesnar is. He's like, he doesn't give a crap what you think. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're like, I remember he was doing the press conference after the thing, and like, I can't remember which one. It was like it was either Bud Light or Coors was like sponsoring the fight.
I'm gonna go drink a Coors, or
he was talking about drinking the opposite beer
and lay on my wife.
And it's like that's just who he is. You know what I mean? He wasn't doing it to like get clicks or anything. Brock Lesnar is like a dairy farmer from South Dakota. He doesn't care about getting clicks or anything like that. You know what I mean? He's just a guy who's like a beast and a really good fighter, and he doesn't care what you feel about what he has to say, because what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Am I going to go confront Brock Lesnar because I'm upset about what he said? No, I'm not. Newsflash, hot take. Dylan Holloway's not confronting Brock Lesnar anytime soon. He can say whatever he wants.
I'm not going to say anything negative about Brock Lesnar because I don't want him to come find me.
I'll tell him where you live, dude.
No kidding.
No.
He rips through your wall like the Kool-Aid man.
This is coming from me as someone who, is a huge Mike Tyson fan. Mike Tyson crossed the line many times. Mike Tyson said he was going to eat people's children. Mike Tyson, like he did Conor McGregor type things, but I always just felt like that was just Mike. Like he was actually a little off. Whereas,
but he also caught a lot of heat for that stuff, dude. He wasn't like regarded as some national treasure, He was threatening reporters and all that kind of stuff. Like that never to me felt like an act. I don't think Mike was trying to sell tickets doing that. I really think he was just being Mike, whereas a lot of McGregor stuff comes off as, oh, like I need to do this to sell. I'm just selling the fight. I'm just playing the bad guy.
Like it felt like the another example is the Logan Paul Mayweather thing, where they had like the scuffle and the pull apart and like the got your hat from Jake Paul and all that, and then like Jake Paul was selling hats and said got your hat after that, like immediately had them for sale.
Got a tattoo, bro, that says
like the next night he had immediately had. I'm like, how do people not? And then people buy the fight and then they complain about the fight every single time. And I'm like, how do you not see through this?
Yeah.
It's like the same Chris Middleton cycle, right?
As George Bush once famously said, there's an old saying in Tennessee, maybe it's Texas, but I think it's Tennessee. Fool me once. Fool me twice. Can't get fooled again, right? Like you just like, why are you constantly getting fooled with this stuff? If you don't like it, if you don't know what it is for what it is as a show, like people who bought Mayweather and Paul, and Amar touched on this on a previous episode. People were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it wasn't a real fight." It's like, what did you expect?
Yeah.
Like, what did you expect? I don't get it.
Yeah. So with the way that this fight turned out and McGregor getting injured, do you think that McGregor gets the same, don't talk about a guy getting hurt? Should he get that same, protection? Because he acts like he does? Do you think it's like, okay to talk crap about Conor McGregor breaking his leg and make fun of him and laugh at him?
Personally,
exactly what he asked for.
Personally, as someone who's like been through rehab and stuff, I can never like sit there on my computer and like laugh at a guy for getting injured. You know what I mean? Like I can't do that. You know, I mean, that's up for each individual person to like decide if he should, you know, get his kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm never, even if it's a player on another team kind of thing, even if I think they're
you don't
the
ever
biggest
see
scumbag in the world. What's that?
Like you don't ever see an injury as karma, right?
No, I think that's stupid, especially when you're like I know fighting is like a more like, you know, rough and tumble sport kind of thing, but especially in like a sport, it's a game. You're playing a game at the end of the day.
Well,
you know
karma
what I mean?
or comeuppance, right? Like people say, okay, you know, I want to see like a lot
Wasn't
of
it Stephen A. Smith? It was Stephen A. Smith that said that the Nets injuries were due to karma.
Yeah.
Karma.
Well,
like,
them
a lot of
losing
people
the
were like
series
with McGregor, you know, McGregor, Mayweather got the same thing. They want to see him lose, right? They want to see someone shut him up. They want to see him humiliated. They, you know, whatever. And some people felt, okay, this injury was an acceptable version of that. You know, like
I guess it is.
I want to see McGregor get beat. I want to see him lose. Oh, he got hurt. Okay, cool. Same thing. Whatever. You know.
I guess it is a little different too in MMA because like you're so used to seeing these like big time injuries. You know what I mean? Of like a broken leg isn't completely insane in MMA, right? It's like, oh, it's a broken leg. Like it sucks if it happens to a guy you like, but it's like, you know, it's not like in basketball where a broken leg, you're like, oh my goodness. Like, you know, it feels a little different to me, at least as a casual MMA observer, to me, it feels a little different. So maybe it's to other people who are big fans of sport, it's not as big of a deal. But even knowing McGregor, even though I think he's like his stick is a stick, you know, and not necessarily like real or transparent. I think it's kind of like showboaty, you know, Barnum and Bailey's like sell the tickets, brother kind of thing. I still like cringe seeing that injury, and I felt bad knowing that he'd have to go and rehab that because like I know how much it sucks to be like someone in athletics getting injured like that, and it's like, well, you know, that really sucks, you know. So I can't.
I think the injury itself sucks terribly bad, and like, man, I hope he heals up well. But I mean, at the same time, I would say that at least in regards to the comments, you know, some of the comments going around, things like that. I mean, yeah, he kind of asked for it. He wanted to be the bad guy. He wants to be the heel. He wants to be the whatever. So, you know, I can't feel bad for a guy getting a lot of hate from a lot of people when, you know, he pushes that narrative or tries to be that villain. So, because you have to understand that, yes, it is just a game. And you're right, Dylan. I totally agree. I think anybody rooting for an injury or that's okay for one, especially rooting for one, that's wrong. You know, that's how these guys make their living, right? I mean, you never want to see somebody, because any injury could potentially be career threatening, right? They're like, well, this one, it wasn't or whatever, but you don't know at the time. You don't know what the circumstances around that are. So it's just one of those where I understand, like, Dylan, where you're coming from, where, personally, I don't ever root for, don't ever talk in negative remarks or regards to it. But in terms of what other people may be saying, what the masses might be saying, whatever the case, hey, you make your bed, you got to lay in it, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll check back in a year because, you know, after McGregor gets healed up, we're probably going to get McGregor Poirier 4. That's kind of the talk right now, is that there will be another fight
with Floyd Mayweather, special guest.
If Poirier still
they've already started the storyline. Poirier came out and said that it doesn't matter if it's in the octagon or on the street, that it's going to happen. So they've already dropped that. You know, the little Dylan. What would be the industry term for something like that? Is it a teaser? Is it a tease? Is it a like what's
Did you see Rocky 5?
Yeah, like a
the
you're planting the seeds.
Street fight, so
right. Yeah.
No, they got
I mean, it's a tease. It's just a little like whether in the octagon or in the street, it's going down, brother. So I
guess technically they're doing a steel. Because I guess technically they can't go to a steel cage match because they're always in an octagon, right? So they're already in a steel cage. Can they do one where they like have to escape the octagon? Like both feet have to touch the floor? Can we just go full blown wrestling with this?
Or just go hardcore rules where they can just start like, and I'm not talking like wrestling type, but like truly, honestly, bash each other over the head with steel chairs and sludge hammers. You know what? Better idea. Let's just scrap the UFC. Let's bring back celebrity death match, but in real life. I mean, I think that's where we're headed anyway. So I like that a whole lot better.
That's a terrible idea.
Oh boy. Okay. So yeah, that's the MMA segment. Coming back. So I think we're gonna take a break here, right?
We're gonna take a break here. Yeah.
And then
I
after
think
that,
we all need a breather after that. There.
Yeah, Austin's gonna share his thoughts on a Mr. Aaron Rodgers. So come back for that.
And anybody who's been watching this, you know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. So we've got something incredibly important to talk about, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Anybody who's watched any of these triple overtime episodes in the past knows how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. I think he's overrated. I think he whines a lot, cries a lot. I just don't really like him. But what I can tell you is that he did an incredibly important thing and made an incredibly important step forward during the recent celebrity golf event that we all were privy to. Many of you watched it. You had Aaron Rodgers. You had some of the greatest basketball, baseball fighters, all these different celebrities and athletes out there in a big charity golfing event. And Aaron Rodgers, who didn't say a whole lot through the entire thing, did take some time for the media and addressed, the various rumors or a lot of questions to a degree as to regards to what he's been doing this offseason. I mean, many know that this offseason with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers has been filled with toxicity, sourness, lots of talks of a failed marriage and divorce coming, and Aaron Rodgers wanting out, the Green Bay Packers not wanting to move, or unsure whether they want to move. Just a lot of things surrounding that. And a lot of people for a long time just were like, Aaron Rodgers, what is going through your mind? What is happening? And he decided to speak up, and he spoke about mental health. And some may not think that what he did was an important step, but it really was. When you have like A-list superstar athletes and celebrities like that are unafraid to speak up when it comes to mental health, and even because he did make a comment about maybe wanting to take this off season for the betterment of his mental health, and he made a comment about not wanting to, or his mental health isn't in regards to depression or anything, and kind of a remark about how like that's okay to talk about, but maybe not so much anything else when you're at that level as a celebrity and as an athlete. And he's right. There's so much pressure that if you're at this point when it comes to mental health, if you're not downright depressed, bipolar, dealing with any of these kind of diseases, then what do you have to be sad about or angry about or hurt for or this or that or the other? And just because a guy makes millions of dollars playing a sport doesn't mean that he's not allowed to feel that way. It doesn't mean that he's not allowed to feel confused or conflicted or any of those things. And when it comes to mental health, it's not always one extreme or the other. I myself, I deal with a seasonal affective disorder. I deal with seasonal depression. I get told all the time that it's not real, that, well, yeah, you just need more sun in your life, or it's always joked about, but it is very real. Come fall, winter time, when the days get shorter, nights get longer, cold weather, everything else. It's rough. It's very, very rough. It's tough to get out of bed. It's tough to get motivated throughout the day. I mean, everything. And I'm a guy, we have a single household or single person income in our household being me, caring for my wife and 3 boys, so if there's anybody who should be always motivated to get out of bed, which I am, which I do. But my point being, I'm not to get off a track here, is just that it's so incredibly important to talk about these things in every aspect of it, every single one. People shouldn't feel like they're taking, like they're doing something monumental by talking about their mental health. It should be commonplace and it should be accepted. And to be honest, I'm really, really incredibly disappointed in the sports media regarding this story. After this happened, the next day, I heard all over certain media outlets, on the radio, as well as other guys laughing at him, telling him that he doesn't have a right to feel that way, calling him all sorts of, some of the names I jokingly called him in the beginning of this segment: a crybaby, a whiner, how dare you, how dare this, what do you have to, what about this, what about these people, what about, guess what? He is allowed to feel that way. He is allowed to act that way, and to laugh at someone. I mean, come on, guys. That is so incredibly wrong and disrespectful, and one of the biggest reasons why men especially have such a hard time opening up about their mental health. So I want you to understand this right now as you watch this. Hopefully you've made it this far in the video, or even if you just skipped ahead, please understand this. If you yourself are struggling with mental health in any way, shape, or form, do not hesitate to reach out. Drop a comment in this YouTube video. Any one of us would be happy to reach out. Understand that, though, there are many hotlines, crisis lines that you can contact and reach out to. Reach out to a friend, a family member, anybody. Please, please, please take it serious. Don't rest on that. Don't wait until it gets too far gone that you feel like there is no help out there for you, anything like that. And for those of you who may know someone who struggles with those things, do not be afraid to reach out. Do not be afraid to touch bases and just shoot them a text saying, hey, you know what? I was thinking about you today and just kind of thinking about your situation and life from your perspective. And I just want to see if you're doing okay. I know you got this, that, or the other thing going on, and what you're going through might be a tough situation or whatever the case may be. But I just want you to know that I'm here for you. A lot of people may think that that's a weird thing to just text someone out of the blue, but I do it constantly to all of my friends and family that I love, because I want them to know and understand that I'm here for them no matter what. And maybe it saved a life or two. I don't know. But what I do know is that none of my close friends or family have taken their life. So it's very, very important that we love and support each other, regardless of how we feel about them on the football team. With that being said, the Green Bay Packers suck. Aaron Rodgers is never winning another Super Bowl, and he is overrated and will never be the GOAT. Thank you.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Austin, tremendous segment on a very important subject on mental health awareness. I think we've all, if we haven't dealt with it ourselves, we know someone, we're related to someone who has dealt with mental health. I myself have struggled with it in the past, so I know how important it is to reach out to somebody. And we're going to post some of these hotlines, some of these websites, some of this information you can learn about mental health and what you can do if you're struggling with it, or if you know someone that's struggling with it. And like you said, Austin, if you know someone who's struggling, just reach out to them. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed this segment there, though. And so we're going to do some final thoughts here, and then we're going to get out of here. Amar, what are your final thoughts tonight?
Ever since we did the Ohtani Mike Trout segment, I was thinking about, how can these two players,
About Chris Middleton being a star. No, I'm just kidding.
how can MLB really capitalize on the Ohtani thing right now, right? Like, what can they do and just really blow this thing up, take advantage of all the attention on him right now? And I realized, I think later this month, Space Jam 2 is coming out, or whatever, the Space Jam, the sequel, whatever.
Don't act like you don't have tickets already to Space Jam New Legacy with your guy LeBron James, all right?
May or may not have bought the Space Jam.
Like you don't have the jersey on pre-order. This guy over here trying to front.
But I was
He's got the hat on pre-order too.
But I was thinking, but here's what baseball needs to do. They've got Shohei Ohtani. They've got Mike Trout playing for the Angels. Reboot of Angels in the Outfield. Okay, right?
I mean, yeah, why not ruin another great childhood memory of mine?
Was that a great childhood?
I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
I liked it in the
Heck
theater.
yeah,
as
are
a
you
kid.
kidding me?
Yeah.
As a kid, I'm sure if I watched
Angels in the Outfield 2, starring Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani.
I think they already did that though, as like a straight to video B-rate.
yeah, like a straight to
honest.
VHS.
Angels in the Outfield 3, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my final.
I haven't seen that movie for real. I haven't seen that movie since I was a little kid. So yes, in my memory banks, it was a good movie. I might go back as an adult and be like, "Wow, this is terrible."
I mean, I
don't do it.
I think that the Cubs dropped the ball when they didn't remake Rookie of the Year, starring,
I agree.
I don't know, Kerry Wood or somebody.
Tom Holland, bro. Tom Holland.
No, I'll give my final thoughts real quick. Then I'll let Austin go. What the Angels need to do is just what the league needs to do for the Angels is just give them like how many games are left? Like where they played like 80 some games now. So many games are left. Austin, they play like 150 some, right?
They're like, I think right at or about to be.
So they got like 70 games, 70-ish games left. Give them a 70-game bye into the playoffs to guarantee that Ohtani's in the playoffs, because the Angels otherwise are not making the playoffs. And while you're at it, MLB, do your boy a favor. Put the Seattle Mariners in the playoffs too, because I'd like to see them in the playoffs before my life ends.
Hey, it could, the Mariners Angels rivalry, like that would be a great playoff storyline. So make it happen.
Austin,
for sure, that would work. My final thoughts are the NBA is in an incredible place right now, despite the lower finals ratings. We are ushering in a new era of superstars, of stars, of standout players. We are watching we're watching one guy finally complete the cycle of what everybody hoped his career would end up being. Granted, and Chris Paul, granted only being one ring. Oh, maybe more, who's to say he retires?
Only one ring, brother.
Whatever. But, it's nice to see, especially in basketball, it seems, and during the Michael Jordan era, there's so many greats, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, did Dominic Wilkins win a ring? No, Dominic Wilkins. That's what I thought. For some reason, I was thinking of Clyde Drexler, who won one with the Rockets.
Reggie Miller. There's one for you, Reggie Miller. Yeah.
There you go, Reggie Miller. There's so many like historic, iconic players that have never won a championship. So it's really cool to not add Chris Paul to that, or potentially.
Austin is
Knocking on
giving
wood.
a hell of a jinx right now, and the Suns will now
Potentially
go.
not
The Suns are
as-
going to lose in 6 now.
I think I just got to root for him at this point. But
The Bucks
potentially
are just
not
going to
add
rip
them
off 3 straight and win, and Paul will never be back to the finals
each
again.
game by 20 points. But potentially get the chance to complete that cycle and not be added to that list. So that is incredibly exciting. The finals as a whole, again, I'm just super excited about. It's just awesome to see these guys on this stage. You know, I'm a huge LeBron James fan, but buddy, I am so tired of seeing him in the finals. I got so tired of seeing him and the Warriors. And it was like seeing the same fight with the UFC after the third one. I don't need a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7. Okay. We already have seen them go at it. I'm done with it. Right. So it's cool to see some fresh young blood on the biggest stage in the National Basketball Association. And to be perfectly honest, I hope this continues to create more parity in the league, and we start to see some other real fresh faces in the finals moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you, Austin. It is cool to see not only new teams, but like a bunch of new players who don't have finals experience, because unless you are a Cavs fan or like just a LeBron fan or a Warriors fan or just a Curry fan or whatever, right? Like it must have been just like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. And I'm a Warriors fan. So I was like, yes, the Warriors again, let's go. But I understand where you'd be coming from, like as a non-Warriors or Cavs or LeBron fan or whatever. We're just like, well, I don't need to see this again. Especially when especially when the Warriors were so stacked. Whereas like unless there's a catastrophic injury.
Right.
Like,
it's cool too to see these new paths kind of being forged, you know, where like we're watching this finals play out, and however it ends, like, so where does this finals in the trajectory of the career take like Devin Booker, right? Like 5 years from now,
this is how you build stars.
Is Devin Booker the 0-1 guy in the finals, or does he win a ring and then maybe another one, and then all of a sudden 5 years from now, Devin Booker's this legit superstar that we're talking about, definite Hall of Fame guy. Hey, DeAndre Ayton, does he solidify himself as like one of the greatest big men ever 5-10 years from now? And this ring or potential ring was the thing that started it with Giannis. You know, is he able to secure this ring and go on a run to put himself in a position to be among the greats of like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, those kind of guys in that, you know, upper echelon of legend, I guess you could say. Or does he, again, just get relegated to a guy who just can't seem to win a ring? You know, it's just, it's a lot of cool, it's a very cool, it's like watching the very first Iron Man, right? You know, going into the MCU, or even watching the new Black Widow setting up for phase 4 of the MCU. Just like, I'm so excited to see where all of this goes 5-10 years from now, for sure.
I just want to know, you know, the people who rig the NBA and who script all these things. why Milwaukee Phoenix? I'm still one like that. Like
when I edit this show, I'm cutting us off right before he says
coming, and so I just want to know, you know, since we know it's all rigged and scripted.
It's because you got to look for the Easter eggs, bro. Like in the Marvel movie, you got to look for the Easter eggs. If you would have watched the playoffs,
like the NBA rigged and scripted injuries.
Yes.
Yep. If you would have watched the very first Cavs Warriors finals game, you would have been able to predict the Suns and the Bucks. If you would have looked for the Easter eggs.
Yeah, so. You just see Devin Booker in the crowd like, ah! Like right as J.R. Smith is like grabbing the ball and doesn't know what the score is, and he's running around, Devin Booker's in the background like
like shooting on like with his buddies holding, like DeAndre Ayton's holding up a trash can with a little basketball thing on it, and he's just shooting it. Okay, we gotta get out of here.
On that note, we will catch y'all next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you also haven't already, hit the bell so you get a notification for all of our amazing content. Click like, if I could speak, click like on the video, drop a comment below, add us on Twitter, add our Instagram, do what you got to do, but be interactive with us here on not only Deal Industries Worldwide, but Triple Overtime and all the amazing other shows we have right now and amazing shows we have in the works. But for Austin Snyder, for Marburton, I'm Dylan Holloway. We will catch y'all next time here on Triple Overtime.